Welcome to the deep dive. We're going to jump into the world of shrimp today.
Yeah.
We're looking at Avanti Feeds Ltd, an Indian company.
Yes.
And we've got their Q2 FY25 press release.
Okay.
We've got the investor presentation, and we've got their financials, both standalone and consolidated.
Great.
And we've also got the auditor's review report.
All right.
So, the idea is that we're going to take a deep dive into all this material
Okay.
and try to figure out what's really driving this company's performance.
Yeah.
And, and see what it means for the future of aquaculture.
Sounds good.
So Avanti Feeds.
Yes.
Avanti Feeds is a big player in the Indian aquaculture scene.
Yes, they are.
They specialize in shrimp feed
Right.
and processing.
Uh-huh.
And they're operating in a pretty interesting environment right now.
Yes. Very dynamic.
Indian seafood exports hit a record high in FY 23-24.
I saw that.
And shrimp is leading the charge.
Yes.
So that's pretty good for Avanti.
Yes. Very much so.
And then on top of that, the Indian government is really supporting the industry.
Yes. They're putting their weight behind it.
So it seems like a pretty good setup for them.
It does. It does. A lot of tailwinds.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's look at Avanti's performance in Q2.
Yep.
Revenue was up 6% year over year.
Okay.
Reaching $13,551 million.
All right.
But even more impressive was the jump in their PT.
Their PT, okay.
That's profit after tax.
Okay.
That was up significantly.
Yeah.
47% year over year to $1,215 million.
Wow, that's a big jump.
Yeah, almost 50%.
That's great.
Yeah, investors must be pretty happy.
I would imagine so.
And of course, that flows through to earnings per share,
Right.
which is a key metric for investors.
Yeah, of course.
And that was up even more.
Even more, okay.
53% year over year to 8.3 per share.
Okay, so big picture, good quarter.
Yes, things are looking good.
But Avanti has these two main business segments.
Right.
Shrimp feed
Mm-hmm.
and then processing and export. So where's this growth coming from?
Well, let's start with the shrimp feed segment.
Okay.
Sales volume there grew 6% year over year.
So similar to the revenue growth.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
But where things get really interesting is the EBITDA margin,
Okay.
which improved by 488 basis points.
Well, hold on. For those of us who don't speak finance every day, what is EBITDA margin?
Sure. So EBITDA margin is essentially how much profit a company makes on its operations before accounting for interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization.
Oh,
So it's a good measure of the core profitability of the business.
I see.
So Avanti's case, that means they're getting a lot more efficient at producing and selling their shrimp feed,
Right.
and probably outperforming their competitors when it comes to managing their costs.
Okay.
In this quarter, their EBITDA margin reached 13.6%.
So that's a good sign.
It is.
So what's behind this efficiency boost?
Well, they attributed to better utilization of their production capacity. So
Yeah.
they're getting more out of their existing facilities. It's interesting.
Which is a smart move because demand is high.
Right.
So they need to produce as much as they can.
Okay. And the government is also supporting this whole industry, right?
Yes, that's right.
So
Ah,
they allocated 2,616 crore
a lot of money.
to the fishery sector,
Yes.
which includes incentives for farmers and infrastructure development.
Right. And research.
Yeah. So that's all got to be helping Avanti.
Yeah. It creates a good environment for the whole industry.
Okay. So shrimp feed is doing well.
Yes.
What about the processing and export side of the business?
Well, they're doing well too.
Okay.
Revenue there was up 12% year over year,
Right.
driven by a 16% jump in export volumes.
Okay. So they're selling a lot more shrimp.
They are, and they're expanding into new markets.
Oh, really?
Yeah, their market share in the European Union went from 4% last year to 19% this year.
Wow. Okay.
That's a big jump.
That's a big jump. Yeah. What's driving that?
Well, it looks like they're strategically diversifying their export markets. Okay.
The investor presentation shows that they're really ramping up exports to the EU
Okay.
and actually decreasing their presence in North America.
Oh, interesting.
So it seems like they're responding to changing global demand
Yeah.
and going where the opportunities are.
Okay, so they're not afraid to shift their focus.
Yeah, they're being adaptable.
Didn't they mention some challenges in this segment too?
You're right.
Something about realizations?
Yes. Despite the strong demand, they said they're facing challenges with realizations.
Okay, what does that even mean?
It means they're not getting the prices they'd hoped for,
Oh,
even though they're selling more shrimp.
I see.
So that's something we need to watch going forward.
Right, because strong demand doesn't necessarily mean strong profits.
Exactly. You need to be able to command the right price.
What are some of the things that might be affecting shrimp prices?
Well, it's a whole range of factors.
Okay.
Global supply chain dynamics,
Okay.
fluctuating currency exchange rates,
Right.
even shifting consumer preferences.
So it's a complex landscape.
It is.
So Avanti's got to navigate all that.
Yeah, they've got a lot to think about.
Now, before we move on to their financial health,
Sure.
I want to touch on this EBITDA margin again.
Okay.
We talked about it with the shrimp feed segment.
Yes.
But what about processing and export?
Ah, good point.
How did they do there?
Well, actually, the EBITDA margin in that segment declined this quarter.
Oh, okay.
It went from 15.3% in Q1 FY25
Uh-huh.
to 11.4% in Q2.
Okay, so not so good.
Not as good, no.
Why the decline?
Well, they attribute it to those realization challenges.
Right, so the pricing pressures, they're squeezing their margins.
Yeah, it looks like they're selling more shrimp,
Mhm.
but maybe not at the most favorable prices.
Okay, so that's something to keep an eye on.
It is.
All right, let's shift gears now.
Okay.
Let's talk about Avanti's overall financial health.
Right.
When you look at their balance sheet,
Yes.
what jumps out at you?
Well, the first thing is that they have zero debt.
No debt.
None.
That's amazing,
It is.
especially for a company of their size
Yeah, it's very unusual.
and in a growing industry.
Yeah, they've got a lot of flexibility.
Yeah, that's great.
So that's definitely a positive sign.
What other indicators tell us about their financial health?
Well, a couple of key ratios to look at are return on capital employed, ROCE,
Okay.
and return on equity, ROE.
Okay.
Both of those have been trending upwards,
That's good.
which suggests that they're using their capital effectively
Okay.
to generate profits and create value for shareholders.
So they're profitable and they're efficient with their capital.
Exactly.
That's a great combination.
It is a very good sign.
Did you find anything else interesting in these reports?
Oh, yeah.
Anything that hints at Avanti's future direction?
Yeah, there are a couple of investor-focused updates that I
Like-
think are worth mentioning.
Right.
Firstly, there's a proposal for a postal ballot to appoint Mr. Youngyat Sithawiwat as a non-executive director.
Oh, interesting. Do we know anything about him?
Unfortunately, the materials we have don't give any background on him.
That's a bit of a mystery.
Yeah, but it'll be interesting to see what he brings to the board.
Yeah, for sure. What was the other update?
Okay, this one's a little technical,
All right.
but it could have big implications
Okay.
for Avanti's ownership structure.
Okay, I'm listening.
The board approved the reclassification
Uh-huh.
of Mr. Vijayakumar Chikkapalli
Yep.
from the promoter group
Uh,
to the public category.
reclassification. Can you explain that for our
Sure.
listeners?
So in India, companies often have these promoters
Right.
who are individuals or groups
Okay.
that hold a substantial stake in the company,
Okay.
often the founders or their families,
Uh,
and they play a big role in the management of the company.
okay.
And the promoter group includes anyone closely associated with the promoters.
I see.
They're subject to different rules and regulations than regular shareholders.
Okay.
So this reclassification suggests that Mr. Chikkapalli is either reducing his stake in the company
Oops.
or stepping back from active involvement.
So potential shift in power.
It could be, yeah.
Interesting.
It's definitely something to watch.
Do we know why he's being reclassified?
No, unfortunately, the reports don't give a reason.
Okay, so another mystery.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see what happens there.
So Avanti seems to be doing well,
They are, yeah.
but there are also some questions about the future.
Yes, there are always challenges and uncertainties in business.
Absolutely.
But that's what makes it interesting, right?
It does.
And it's what makes it important to do these deep dives.
Yeah, to really understand what's going on.
Exactly.
So how does Avanti stack up against its competitors?
Well, the reports don't give us a direct competitor analysis, but we can get some clues.
Right.
Remember that EBITDA margin improvement in the shrimp feed business? That suggests they're managing costs better than some of their rivals.
Okay.
And their market share gains in Europe are another positive sign.
Yeah,
It seems like they're outmaneuvering the competition.
that's good.
But to really understand their competitive position, we need to look at the bigger picture.
Okay.
What are the key factors that determine success
Uh-huh.
in the shrimp feed and processing industry?
I,
And what are the biggest challenges they face?
that's a good question.
Let's explore that in our next segment.
Okay, sounds good.
So we were talking about what makes a company successful in this industry.
Right, the shrimp feed and processing industry.
Yeah, what are the keys to success?
Yeah, like what do they need to do to thrive?
Well, first off, it's all about the quality of the shrimp feed.
Okay.
It needs to be high quality, help farmers get the most out of their shrimp.
Right. Maximize their yields.
Exactly, and also help minimize disease.
So it's not just about making a lot of feed.
No, it's about creating a product that gives farmers a real advantage.
Yeah, like a secret weapon.
Kinda, yeah. And another big thing is operational efficiency,
Okay.
keeping those production costs low.
Right, but still maintaining high quality.
Exactly. And remember how Avanti had that big improvement in their EBITDA margin?
Yeah, for their shrimp feed business.
That's just they're doing a good job on that front.
So they're running a tight ship.
Yeah, they're efficient, but it's not just about production either.
Right. What about the supply chain?
Exactly. You got to have a strong and reliable supply chain.
Yeah, from getting the raw materials to delivering the finished feed to the farmers.
It's crucial in this business. Any disruption can really hurt the bottom line.
And Avanti operates in a region that's prone to natural disasters, right?
That's right. Cyclones, floods, all sorts of things.
So they need to be prepared for anything.
Absolutely. Risk management is key.
Okay, so we've talked about the feed side.
Right.
What about the processing and export business?
Well, it's about having efficient processing facilities
Okay.
and maintaining strict quality control.
Right, because you're dealing with food.
Exactly. And it's also about understanding international markets.
Okay.
Different countries want different things when it comes to shrimp.
Like size and quality.
Exactly. And how it's processed. Remember how Avanti has been diversifying its export markets?
Yeah, they're selling to more countries now.
Right. That's a smart move because it reduces their dependence on any one market.
So they're spreading their risk.
Exactly. And it also allows them to capitalize on different opportunities.
But they're still facing those pricing pressures, right?
That's right. Those realization challenges we talked about.
Yeah, so even though they're selling more shrimp, they're not necessarily making more profit.
Exactly. And those global shrimp prices are always fluctuating.
Right. They go up and down all the time.
It's a volatile market influenced by so many factors.
Like what?
Oh, supply and demand, of course.
Okay.
But also things like weather patterns, disease outbreaks, even currency exchange rates.
So it's a complex equation.
It is, and Avanti has to navigate all of that.
Okay, so they need to be adaptable and strategic.
Exactly. What about competition?
Yeah. Who are they up against?
Well, the reports we have don't give us a detailed breakdown,
Right.
but we know it's a competitive industry.
Right. India is a major shrimp producer.
Exactly. So there are a lot of players vying for market share.
Both domestic and international.
That's right.
So Avanti has to stay on top of their game.
They do. They need to keep innovating and finding ways to stand out.
But beyond just the business side of things, what about sustainability?
Yes, that's a big one these days.
It is. Investors are paying more and more attention to ESG factors.
Exactly. And aquaculture has faced some criticism in the past.
Right. There have been concerns about environmental impact.
Exactly. Things like pollution, disease outbreaks, the use of antibiotics.
So it's not all perfect.
No, there are definitely challenges, and it's important to be aware of those.
What about Avanti? How do they address these sustainability concerns?
Well, the materials we have don't go into a ton of detail, but they do highlight the government's role in promoting sustainable practices.
Okay, so the government is taking some steps.
Yes, they're encouraging farmers to adopt eco-friendly techniques,
Right.
and they're providing financial support for those efforts.
That's good, but ultimately it's up to the companies, right?
Absolutely. They need to walk the walk, not just talk the talk.
And investors need to hold them accountable.
Exactly. They should be asking questions, looking for evidence of sustainable practices.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have, from shrimp feed to global markets to sustainability.
But there's one more piece of the puzzle we need to examine.
You're talking about that boardroom shakeup.
Exactly. The reclassification of Mr. Chakapali and the potential appointment of Mr. Sethoiwat.
Yes, those are definitely worth exploring.
Let's dive into those in our next segment. Okay, so we're back and ready to tackle that boardroom intrigue.
Yes, let's unravel those mysteries.
All right, so first up, we've got Mr. Chakapali and his reclassification.
Right, moving from the promoter group to the public category.
Can you quickly remind our listeners what that means?
Sure. In India, companies often have these promoters who are usually the founders or their families or key individuals who hold a big chunk of the company's shares and have a lot of influence over its management. They're subject to different rules and regulations than regular public shareholders.
Right, so they're kind of like the VIPs of the company.
Yeah, you could say that. So When someone is reclassified to the public category, it usually means they're either selling off some of their shares or stepping back from actively running the company.
So it's like they're moving from the inner circle to the outer ring.
Exactly, potentially losing some control and influence.
Okay, so in Mr. Chukapala's case, we don't really know why this happened.
That's right, the reports didn't say.
So is he selling his shares? Is he just taking a less active role?
It's a bit of a mystery.
A corporate cliffhanger.
You could say that. But even without knowing the exact reason, this move raises some interesting questions.
Yeah, like could this shift in power dynamics change the company's direction?
It's possible. It could also create opportunities for new players to come in and try to exert some influence.
So it's something investors need to keep an eye on.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've got one mystery on our hands, and then there's this potential new board member, Mr. Sethaliwat.
Right, the reports didn't tell us much about him.
Yeah, it's like they just dropped his name and left us hanging.
It's true, we don't have a lot to go on.
But even without knowing his background, his appointment to the board could be significant, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Like, what kind of expertise is Avanti looking for?
Yeah, or connections.
Could this hint at new markets they're interested in?
It's possible, maybe even new strategies they're considering.
Right, like are they going to expand into new areas?
We'll have to wait and see. Board appointments can definitely give you clues about a company's long-term plans.
Okay, so more mystery to unravel.
It's all part of the fun.
I guess so. But I think these unanswered questions also highlight an important point.
What's that?
Companies are always changing.
Right.
Right.
Oh, yeah, they have to adapt to new challenges and opportunities.
It's like a constantly moving target.
Exactly.
So investing isn't just about looking at the numbers.
No, you have to understand the people, the strategies, the forces that are shaping a company's future.
And that's why deep dives like this are so important.
Absolutely. We've gone from shrimp ponds to boardrooms to global markets.
Trying to put all the pieces together.
And hopefully our listeners have learned something along the way.
Right, we've given them the information.
Tools to make their own decisions about Avanti.
So next time you're enjoying a shrimp dinner,
think about all the complexity behind it.
the business, the finance, the ambition,
It's a fascinating world.
and keep asking those insightful questions.
That's what makes you a smart investor.
And that's what the deep dive is all about.
Join us next time for another exciting deep dive.
Into the world of business.